Hello! So I've been asked to find the coefficient of x squared in the expansion of x plus 3 over the square root of 1 minus 2x. Now look, this has come as part of question 3. Now we've just found in the first part of question 3 the expansion of 1 minus 2x to the minus half as far as the first 3 terms, okay? So the fact that now this is part of the second part of part 3, it means, and as well as that they say hence, it means that we're going to be using the first part of question 3 somewhere in our answer. So first of all, let's just have a look at x plus 3 over the square root of 1 minus 2x. Now, I'm going to rewrite that, and I want to try and link it back to the first part of the question. So bearing in mind I've found the expansion of 1 minus 2x to the power of negative a half. Hang on a minute, I see your 1 minus 2x down here, okay, underneath this square root. So, let me first of all write it using power notation. So I'm going to write this square root as to the power of a half. Okay, so I'm going to write this as x plus 3 over 1 minus 2x to the power of a half. Okay, well that's really close to what I've got up there. Wait a minute, what do we get when we get fractions? Well, if you got 1 over something, for example, let's say 1 over 2, I can write that as 2 to the power of negative 1. So why don't I just rewrite this? It's like cross the line, change the sign. I'm just going to rewrite this as x plus 3, okay, and then I'm going to write my 1 minus 2x to the power of a half on the denominator. I'm going to bring it up onto the numerator by writing it as 1 minus 2x, not to the power of a half anymore. I'm going to write it to the power of negative a half now. Hang on a minute, that there is exactly the same as what I found up there. So in other words, I'm trying to find the coefficient of x squared in the expansion of this. So when I expand this out, so I've got to have a bracket times a bracket, I'm going to end up doing sort of a bit of a quadratic-y thingy going on, okay? But I can actually just replace my 1 minus 2x, the power of negative a half, with 1 plus x plus 3 over 2 x squared, okay? So this is going to become x plus 3 times by 1 plus x plus 3 over 2 x squared, okay? And then I just have to expand that out, to find the coefficient of x squared. Now, I could go ahead and just multiply out every term, so this x by everything in this bracket, and then this 3 by everything in this bracket, okay? But that's technically 6 things I'm going to have to multiply together. Not a big deal, but it'll be far more efficient if I could just kind of see what's going to give me an x squared. So what multiplied by what is going to give me an x squared? Okay, well, let's look at this x first of all. Let's look at this x. X multiplied by what will give me an x squared? Well, you're happy x multiplied by something x squared is going to give me a something x squared. So x multiplied by another something in here, which is an x in the second bracket, okay, because one thing in the first bracket has to multiply with one thing in the second bracket, okay, so it's got to be an x times an x to give me an x squared. So x times x, that's my x squared. Okay, so that's one of the x squared terms that I'm going to get. How else can I get an x squared? So 3 multiplied by what? How can I get an x squared? Well, a 3 is just like a number. So a number multiplied by what, and I want an x squared? Well, the only thing that's got to be is got to be a term in x squared. So a number multiplied by something x squared, that's going to give me an x squared. So 3 multiplied by, there's the thing of x squared I want. So 3 multiplied by 3 over 2. So 3 multiplied by 3 over 2 x squared. Okay, and then when I work that out, so remember, I just want the coefficient now. I just want the coefficient, so now I've worked out what the x squared terms are going to be, okay, and you can verify, you know, if you're not sure, well, 3 multiplied by 1, that's not an x squared, 3 multiplied by x, that's not an x squared, x multiplied by 1, that's not an x squared, and x multiplied by x squared, that's not an x squared, so you can just kind of verify what's going to give you the x squared. So now I've found all the terms with x squared in, I just want to look for the coefficients. So I've got x squared, okay, and then because when I expand this out, I'm just going to end up adding all the terms anyway. You've done expanding quadratics and cubics and whatnot. Okay, so it's going to be x squared plus 3 by 3 over 2 x squared. Okay, well, because I'm only interested in kind of the coefficient, I can now just drop the x squared, stop it looking so confusing. Okay, just remember that this single x squared on its own is just the same as 1 x squared. So the coefficient in front of just x squared is 1. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Okay, what is 3 times 3 over 2? Well, 3 times 3 over 2 is going to be 9 over 2, isn't it? Because this is the same as 3 over 1, so the tops just multiply together and the denominators just multiply together. By the way, if you ever just see something like that, okay, the 3 just climbs up on the top. If it was like 3 over 2 divided by 3, the 3 would climb down on the bottom. Okay. This is the same as 9 over 2. Okay, so I guess it's just 1 plus 9 over 2, which is 11 over 2. Okay, so that is the coefficient in x squared that I'm after. So if you want us to write that in an exam, it might be useful just to write x squared, then a little code on. Okay, but that's all it was. And remember, when you get these kind of questions, hence, okay, and normally with binomial expansion questions, they usually want you to try and link it back to what's already come in the question. So basically, it's just keeping your eye out, thinking, right, what have I just found? How can I link it back to what they're now trying to find? Because sometimes they can look quite different, but trust me, there will be a connection there.